I wanted to buy things. My family didn't have the money for me to buy the things that other kids were getting. So I started shoveling, literally going up to people's driveway houses in the winter and saying, can I shovel your driveway? And I said, just pay me whatever you want. And then I'd rake leaves. And then I got a paper route. And then I washed dishes. It was whatever I could do to make money I was doing as a kid.
This is Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgensen.
Welcome out to Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio. I am your host, Tyler Jorgensen, and today we have the honor and privilege and pleasure of meeting with an absolute legend in the marketing space. David Asarnow runs Business Nitrogen. They are a business growth and strategy consulting company who just happens to do marketing. And I've known David for years and known clients that he's successfully helped and seen the impact he's had on the world. So I'm so grateful, David, that you decided now is the time to come out here on Biz Ninja Radio, and welcome out to the show.
Thanks, Tyler. I mean, it's amazing after all these years of knowing each other that we're finally getting together to talk like this.
That's it. You know, sometimes the world just works in its own unique ways, and we're here now. So I want to know, David, when was that moment that you first realized you are an entrepreneur?
Well, I think I realized I was an entrepreneur when I was about 7 or 8 years old, when I wanted to buy things. My family didn't have the money for me to buy the things that other kids were getting. So I started shoveling, literally going up to people's driveway houses in the winter and saying, can I shovel your driveway? And I said, just pay me whatever you want. And then I'd rake leaves. And then I got a paper route.
Yes.
And then I washed dishes. It was whatever I could do to make money I was doing as a kid and a teenager. And
I'll tell you,
as an adult.
Yeah. And what? And as an adult, you do whatever it takes, right? It's amazing how many of the entrepreneurs that I have on this show have a similar story, that they did the paper route. They did just whatever it took, whatever they could do in the neighborhood that maybe, okay, I'm not going to get an allowance. What can I do? And I think that problem-solving ability is at the root of what it means to be an entrepreneur. So I think it makes a ton of sense that commonality exists. What was your first real business?
My first real business. Well, I'm laughing because my first real business. Well, there's funny. You asked me my first real business, but I got a flash to something I have to share.
Let's do it.
When I was 14 years old, I bought a 10-speed bike for myself that I had been saving for years. I still have that bike to this day. It's hanging up in my garage. Okay. Because it meant so much to me that back then when I was that age, $118 was like probably buying a $1,000 bike today. Right.
Right.
And I spent my own money, and it was from washing dishes. So what is my first real job? I just got a flash when you were asking me that question.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Love those flashbacks.
In college, I wouldn't say it's not a first real job, but it is a first real job. Before I graduated from University of Florida with a degree in advertising, I went to school for photography, and I did photography on the side in high school. And so my first real job was what helped me make money in college. And then I did it for a couple years after college, was a freelance photographer. And the way that I found people I would go to there used to be all over the radio, model calls, come to the big model search, and there was 1,000 people would show up, and I would bring up one portfolio. I had friends to take pictures of me so I could get into the show. But then really what I did is I went up to the moms, selling photography sessions over the next month to for their daughters. And that was my first real, hustle to make money, because I did it a couple years. Is it a real job?
Yeah, that's a real business in terms of like a hustle. Maybe you didn't have an LLC or a corporation, but man, I love that creativity of saying, okay, it's like the idea of the real money in the gold rush is selling pickaxes. Right.
Yeah,
and so it's like, okay, everyone's rushing over here to bring their daughters to the model search. I'll go sell to them. It's super smart.
They brought them right to me, and all I had to do was walk up and say hi to everyone and say, can I show you my portfolio? And everyone said yes. And it worked. I got kicked out of
easy pitch.
I got kicked out of a lot of competitions, but
sure.
It it worked for me back then. That was my first job. What happened though after that is I went into corporate America. My grandfather became an entrepreneur when he was 50 years old, and I grew up in his business. It was orthotics and prosthetics. And he offered it to me when I was 17 with one caveat, that he was sick with cancer. And he asked me, the only thing I asked is you'd be willing to take care of your grandmother for the rest of her life should something happen to me. And frankly, at 17 years old, that was too much for me.
Yeah, that's a big burden.
And I wasn't willing to take that. So I grew up in his business. I mean, he took me from, he called it detailing doctors, but there were sales calls. I mean, I'd go with him on sales calls on every vacation, break, summer, et cetera. I was with him. And so I learned a lot on watching him build his business. I got involved with everything from cleaning wheelchairs to hospital bed deliveries. I learned a lot about people, how people treated you when you're home, when you're coming in at a truck. And it's interesting. You learn so much about human nature, and it was a great lesson. Now, it was his suggestion. He said, you need to go get some skills and training. And the best way to do that is have someone pay you to learn on their dime. He said, you'll go forward faster if you're willing to do that. And I did. I went into corporate America. I've never been involved in professional sales. And I became one of the top 3 out of 300 sales reps in the first 2 years with the company. I went to another company, became the top region manager. And then that company was a 50-year-old, $68 million company that gave me an opportunity to start a new division. And I treated it as if it was my own business. Mm-hmm. And I was able to grow that to $45 million in 5 years. So that wasn't my first entrepreneurial venture, but it was me honing the skills on someone else's dime, testing marketing strategies, sales strategies, leadership strategies, management strategies. And it gave me an opportunity where I became the president and CEO of the first all digital portrait studio chain franchise. And we ended up, they were hiring, and I said, no, let's turn the tables. Let's buy the company out, rebrand it. You will buy out the private equity company, give them stock in the new company, some cash. So they got something back, but they had the upside. We rebranded it, made it profitable, sold the story, and became a top 15 hot franchise in 5 years. But that's when I realized I wasn't an entrepreneur, because back then we were like in the headlines. I was featured as in my 30s as one of the young guns of franchising. And I was in magazines, I was speaking, and it was awesome. And then I saw the market shifting, and I knew that we had to do something differently. And I came back from a board meeting. They're like, no, we got to stay the route. And that's when I realized I wasn't an entrepreneur, and I resigned.
Meaning within that company, you weren't the business owner. You couldn't actually make the big decisions.
Up until then, I was making all the decisions, and I realized then that I knew we had to change. And I get bored. And 5 years, it's funny. I've been doing this 15 years now, but I keep reinventing who I am within my business today, because otherwise I'd be so. I resigned, and they said, "What are you going to do?" Why? What are you going to do? I said, I'm going to be a motivational speaker. They're like, what? And the funny thing is, I still never been a motivational speaker, although I'm probably a little motivational when I speak, but I did get an opportunity to speak for Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes, and became Tony and Chet's top closing business speaker. And so I did that for a few years, and then 15 years I've been doing business nitrogen. So I guess I have a real entrepreneurial venture now.
Yeah, very cool. So you launched Business Nitrogen. Who do you serve? Who do you help in that business?
We've had an opportunity and an honor to serve so many companies, thought leaders. Today, we work a lot with two interesting niches. I like to work with clients who really are have a unique strategy, unique positioning that can differentiate themselves from anyone else. So whether it's business to business, but then their clients buy their product or service, and it's like a subscription, or that people can come back and do more. So I can then help their clients sell their unique product too. So it gives a double opportunity to serve and help people build, grow, and scale. So that's really what we're focused on today. But we've worked with some of the big name thought leaders, as you know, over the years.
Yeah, Absolutely. And so, what perspective do you think that you gained when you went and did do that corporate America thing? How does that experience help you run your business today?
Structure, understanding that you have to have systems, realizing, and something my grandfather told me when I was younger. I said, "How do I know I have a company?" And he said, "When you have an employee." He said, "That's how you have a company. You're not a promotion. You're not just one off." And that was, it was easier for me to realize when I went off, and finally when I left Tony and Chet and went off on my own, the first thing I did was hire an assistant. So that way I could start, build, grow, and scale. And the interesting thing is the person that I hired 15 years later is still with me today.
Oh, that's cool. I love when that kind of stuff happens where you get to kind of create and build together. You've through that 15 years, I'm sure you've had lots of ups and downs. What's one major challenge that you came across and that you had to face, and how did you overcome it?
How many of those challenges do we want to talk about?
Whatever one just feels right today.
Well, the first one that happened was, and I was in Russell Brunson's book, 30 Days. And he talked about, if he told about a story where someone said, if you had 30 days to lose everything, what would you do? And you ever get that pit in your stomach and your heart, like, oh gosh, I've been there before. And I was that, it got so bad that I actually had to go ask my young teenage daughter if I could borrow her babysitting money savings so we could pay the mortgage.
Wow.
And I remember it like it was yesterday. She said, "Dad, will you pay me back?" And can you imagine like a 14-year-old having that conversation? I mean, that was probably one of the lows.
Yeah.
But what happened from there is I went and thought, and I collected it myself. I went down, I live in Atlanta, and I went to the Chattahoochee River, and I just sat there and I'm like, what the heck happened? And I realized something. I was because it's like interesting. You have so much success, you just you forget where it really comes from, and you start focusing on ego so much. And didn't have a lot of gratitude. And when I started appreciating everything that I had, things started like almost instantly shifted. And I got clear and focused on who I could serve, how I could serve, what I needed to do. And in less than 30 days, generated 6 figures in revenue, and it went up. Now, the next big challenge that we had, a lot of people had, 60% of my business disappeared almost overnight during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to my team and had a conversation with them. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if you guys are willing. I'd want to keep everyone around. Are you willing to work half time? Because I'll figure out how to pay this until we turn it around. And everyone but one person said yes. None of them worked half time. They continued working full time. And within 4 months, I was able to not only get back higher than we were before, but pay everyone back what I owed them and then some. So
that's a big deal. That's cool.
That they didn't ask for it, but I did it, and because I could. And so having that, one of the things that really meant something to me as an entrepreneur is when I cried when I realized my team was there supporting me that much, and they were in on this, and that meant so much to me.
Yeah, it's a big deal. That was a really wild time. I remember sitting with my team doing a similar thing. Like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen 90 days from now, but for the next 90 days, we'll figure it out together. The business really evolved a lot during that stretch. And you either had to move with it and make adjustments or get buried. And I think that the longer you're in business, the more that you see that happens all the time. Right. It's not just those big moments of when something like COVID hits. But it's every once in a while there's algorithm changes or industry changes or AI comes out and hits us, and you got to be adaptable. You got to be changing. You got to be moving.
It's interesting. I was part of some business groups and other entrepreneurs, and everyone was just cutting their staff like crazy. And they're like, you got to cut hard, cut fast, cut deep right now. And I said, that doesn't feel right to me. They're like, well, you're going to put yourself out of business. I said, maybe.
Yeah.
But I chose to do it my way.
But you still did it in a way that had a lot of great transparency, right? You communicated, you set an expectation. You didn't just, because some, leaders, instead of communicating, will just hide and just say, yeah, everything's fine, even though it's not fine. And that's a tough balance to how transparent to be as a leader. And it sounds like your side is, hey, I'm just going to share it all and we're going to figure it out together.
And my daughter tells me I share too much sometimes, but
yeah, daughters tend to think that. That's fair. You've been working in this industry a long time. You just brought up Chet Holmes, who I've worked with his daughter Amanda and their company, and I absolutely love Chet's teachings in the Ultimate Sales Machine and Dream 100. For listeners that may not have ever learned that stuff, what are some of the best things you learned from working with Chet?
What are some of the best things that I learned working from Chet? Well, the interesting story is I actually attended one of their webinar trainings when I was the CEO of that company that I mentioned that I resigned from. And I was at a speaker training. I'll get to the answer. I was at a speaker training, and Ted Miller was the vice president of sales and marketing. And he came to this 70-person speak to sell speaker training, talking about what they're doing. He says, has anyone been on one of their webinars? I raised my hand. He asked me what my name was, and he remembered my company, remembered what we did. And he came up to me afterwards and he said, you should come speak for us. And I said, no, I'm going to try to do it on my own. And 3 months later, I called him up and said, hey, is that opportunity still there? And so anyway, I ended up doing that until after Chet passed away. So what did I learn from Chet? One, Chet built a company that was all about serving others. And one of the things that I realized is how to actually workshop with people at scale on one-to-many in a group setting, and how to tie that in different people's successes and helping them future pace and see what is really possible in their life and their business when they take action. Now with Chet, it's not about doing 10,000 different things. It's about getting clear and focused and doing the 7 things 10,000 times. And that's one of his quotes, right? And so, it is putting in the systems and the processes. It is putting the right people in the right position in order to do it. It's all about testing and trying new things. I mean, one of the things I still to this day ask clients, how many effective marketing methods do you have? I mean, not how many different marketing methods, but how many effective, which means they actually produce results for you. And most people have 1, 2, and if they're lucky, 3.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that I still do to this day is let's try something new every month. And here's why. If we try 12 things over the course of the year, do you think one of them is going to work? Yeah. And if you're doing one thing that's working really well and you find over the course of a year something else that works equally as well, you can double your business. If you're doing 3 things, well, you add one more. Guess what? You can grow your business 25% just by adding one more effective method. So it's how do you take these complex strategies and break it down into simple methods and let people see that growing your business is not about fancy. It's not about throwing more money here or there. It's about continuous improvement and testing. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, shift, modify, and adjust what you're doing, but try something else next month.
Yep. I love that. It's amazing how many people that I talk to maybe have one effective, right? They're testing a bunch of things or they're doing things, but they're not tracking right, or they're not. And then once they get it going, they stop looking around. It's like Russell Brunson used to always say, like, entrepreneurs have this issue where they hit one success and instead of taking the show on the road, they like now they look for the next thing and instead of keep doing it. And so
I'm guilty of that too.
Oh, sure.
It's called shiny object syndrome.
How
And Russell, by the way, very guilty of this too.
Oh, big time. Yeah. And so to me, it's like, okay, you can fight that, try to get yourself to stop doing that. Or you can just set systems in place to make sure that when something does work, it gets replicated and it gets expanded and it gets, people that are better at staying focused can apply in those new tests every month. Right. Like, but it just has to be a priority. Yeah. Who are some people in your entrepreneurial, life that have really impacted you?
Well, I've had a lot of people. I have had a lot of people. I mean, almost every month I get impacted by someone new. And the funniest thing is you never know where you're going to learn some of the best strategies. Chet impacted me. He gave me an opportunity. Ted gave me the opportunity because someone had laryngitis one day and they were launching out a new how to hire a superstar salesperson. I got a call 2 hours before this brand new webinar that I'd never seen to present it. And I did not follow the script at all. In fact, I really did not follow the script, but I closed 75% on this webinar, a $3,000 sale. And Mitch, who was the CEO of the company, spoke to me afterwards. He said, I don't know where you were going, but whatever you did, you closed everyone. So he said, Chet wants to speak with you. And Chet and I had a really good conversation. And he gave me an opportunity when he was sick with cancer to speak live because he couldn't. And so that was almost like a dream that I got. That was my first time actually going out there and teaching and training in front of groups. And then I remember him saying, these people aren't going to buy anything, but you're wasting your time on it. And I'd sell 45,000. And he's like, okay, maybe you did okay there. And so, and that was of coaching consulting. So we'd speak for free, but then we would sell coaching consulting or his ultimate business mastery system, which was awesome. And so I learned a lot from Chet. Tony was one of the first mentors that I had. I remember when I was 22 years old, one of my friends went to work for Tony and invited me to the first seminar. And I said, one day I can see myself on that stage. I didn't realize that I'd actually be doing things with him, but mentors, it's like, what can we learn? I had a lot of speakers, as I was working as a CEO. I started doing things on weekends to learn how to speak and go to seminars. I volunteered with a lot of different people that gave me opportunities to come on their stage, whether it was as their MC or speaking and training. It got me a free trip to Necker Island because I added value to someone, and they joked, what can we do for you? I said, bring me to Necker Island on your next trip. And they did.
That's cool.
So
that's cool.
A lot of great things. So mentors. I mean, I just went to an event with Patrick Bet-David that I've never been to any of his things. Just seeing how he thinks and how he operates and how he builds a sales team gave me a different perspective. So the way I look at it is we always should be learning. We should always take one good thing from anything that we read, anything that we do, anything that we listen to, and say, how can I take this one thing and make my business or my life better?
Yeah, I think that was something that I learned from Tony Robbins early on, right? I think he calls it CANI, constant and never ending improvement. Mm-hmm. And I think it's great. So many times we think, oh, well, when I do this, I'll have made it. Or when I hit this goal, I'll have made it. And it's like, that's not it, man. It's about always getting better. Friend of mine, Bedros Koulian, says never peak, right? Like we're not done, right? Just got to keep climbing, keep growing.
And the problem is if you think, once you've said, I finally made it, that's usually when you start declining.
Yeah. You've settled it or something. Something's happened. I don't know many people that have said that and then kept growing and kept doing well. That's tough, especially in business. It's life and personal progress, and business is like walking up a down escalator. Right? The minute you stop going, like climbing, it just brings you right back down to the bottom.
You just got to keep moving progress forward.
Yeah, that's it. What's something that you're really excited about right now in business?
I'm excited about AI. I've been excited for a couple years now. And I remember a conversation I had with my team. I said, either we are going to master AI or we won't exist any longer and we'll be replaced by people who do. Who knew that that was going to be so true? And it is. So we're doing a lot of today. We have Business Nitrogen. I've launched out an AI conversational voice and messaging AI company. And we're building AI agents. So for clients these days, I know if we can help people master AI, we'll be a valuable resource for them. So today we're helping people build their marketing playbooks, their positioning, their market, and building like we would do when we bring on a client. It would take 60 to 90 days to build all this out before we would do the marketings, the automation, the webinars, etc. So we've productized that, but we're helping people create their own AI sales and marketing AI agents and bots. So that way they can get very high level quality landing pages, emails, promotions, ad copy. That's all on brand story, all on brand message, following playbooks that we've assembled and put together that they can then utilize on a monthly basis. So that's really where I think things are going for us as a company, besides serving the clients in the niches that we serve.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. It's always good to see that people are staying on top of this. I think it's a very, there is no question to me that AI is here, right? There's no pretending it's not at this point, and it's only getting here faster and growing faster than we even expected. But
yes,
as we get close to the end of this, I want to make sure we hit on something, because I know that you, like me, believe that life is not just about business, right? It's about relationships and experience. What is one item on your personal bucket list that you're going to accomplish in the next 12 months?
It's funny. I have to book the flight, but we've set the time. I was invited by my son, who's 24, soon to be 25 years old. He said, "Dad, how would you like to take a father and son trip?" And we like hiking together. So when he was home last time, we hiked the highest peaks in the Smoky Mountains. A couple weeks ago, we went up to the Appalachian Trail in Georgia.
Very
and he
cool.
said, "Dad, why don't we go hike the Himalayas?" And so I'm doing a 14-day trek through the Mansula circuit, which goes up to 17,000 feet high.
Wow.
14 days with my son. And that's sort of a bucket list type item.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm training every day for it right now.
That's good.
Because I've got 4 months, almost 4 months to the day before we do it.
That's going to be awesome. I'm so excited to keep an eye on that experience. Where should people go if they want to learn more about you?
Want to learn about me? You can go to businessnitrogen.com, davidasarnow.com, or on Instagram, Real David Asarnow.
Awesome. David, thank you so much for coming out on the show, sharing a little bit about your experience, the people that have impacted you. I know you're also making impacts behind you, and that's what I love about the ripple effect of this world we live in. So thank you so much for coming out on the show. To all my biz ninjas, wherever you're tuning in, listening, watching, or streaming, it's your turn to go out and do something.